our group project explores industrial work and its consequences in Bristol.
As part of our coursework, we found industrial work to be an important part of Bristol's place identity. Bristol's economy has a reliance on human labour for services. Considering industrial work in Bristol led us to think about the work available and what labour was required for economic growth. We became particularly interested in civil and labour rights activism taking place in the city. After World War II, many people migrated from the Caribbean to Britain to assist in post-war reconstruction. Many moved to Bristol looking for employment and economic prospects. This population growth required Bristol's economy to grow, to provide new jobs and services, including public transport. The Bristol Omnibus Company became the dominant controller of bus transport in Bristol and began hiring employees to drive its buses. Thus, when the bus company banned the hiring of non-white people, tensions rose among black communities. This finally culminated in direct action to fight for civil and labour rights, the Bristol Bus Boycott. Bristol has taken action to make sure that this history has been remembered, debated and discussed. Academics such as Madge Dresser have taken key interests in this history and have looked at how the effects have changed Bristol's culture as part of its continued effort to decolonise and acknowledge its history.
Looking into the 1963 Bristol Bus Boycott led us down numerous lines of inquiry. The omnibus colour bar was an active and direct form of discrimination, hence a boycott was organised. Omnibus argued that white people may stop using the buses if black people are driving them. Therefore, to try and satisfy and retain its customers, the colour bar was enforced. Paul Stevenson, a local youth worker, arranged an interview for an omnibus driver vacancy for one of his mentees, Guy Bailey. After getting an interview date and time, Stevenson phoned them again to let them know Bailey was of Caribbean origin, leading to Omnibus cancelling the interview. Further research into this line of inquiry led us to find that Stevenson then went to meet Ian Patey, the Omnibus manager, who confirmed the company enforced the colour bar. Stevenson and the West Indian Development Council were inspired by Rosa Parks and the civil rights movement taking place in the United States, and decided a boycott was the answer. The boycott took place between the 30th of April and the 27th of August 1963, until the colour ban was finally lifted on the 28th of August. In September 1963, Omnibus employed their first non-white bus conductor, Rag Piercy, and then their first non-white bus driver, Norman Samuels. In 1964, looking at the bus boycott as a line of inquiry helped us to understand the employment taking place, as well as the racial tensions and the labour rights in Bristol in the 20th century. The boycott was a pivotal moment for civil and workers' rights, which led us to be interested in how the event is represented throughout Bristol today. The memorialisation and commemoration of such a significant event is essential to help Bristol decolonise its past and move to a modern and representative future.
During our trip to Bristol, we visited the M-Shed Museum to follow this line of inquiry. M-Shed is dedicated to documenting and memorialising Bristol's history, so we felt this would be a helpful place to explore our line of inquiry about the bus boycott. An exhibition of a 1960s omnibus company green bus is used to spotlight the boycott. This led us to question the significance of this specific bus. We followed this line of inquiry by searching the registration number of the bus through the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Agency. This led us to find out that the bus was made in 1966, 3 years after the bus boycott took place, and was used by Omnibus until 1983. We found it surprising that the exhibition on the boycott displayed a bus not actually from the event itself. Whilst this bus was not a direct memorial of the bus boycott, it led us to question the other ways in which the event has been remembered throughout Bristol. The bus in the museum is now a central exhibition in the M-Shed, showing the importance of it to Bristol's past. This exhibition led us to want to look at direct memorials to the boycott, which further incorporate its history and influence, and showing how Bristol is now displaying its complex past and its continued efforts to addressing and understanding the influence of it in an appropriate and modern manner.
To develop this line of inquiry, we visited Bristol's bus and coach station to see if and how the boycott was remembered. When we arrived, we found that there was a commemorative plaque memorialising the boycott. The plaque, as shown on the slide, displays some of the most important individuals involved in the boycott, alongside a description of the event and how it was campaigned against racial discrimination. We noticed that the plaque contained no imagery of buses, nor reference to the women of the boycott. This opened an individual line of inquiry as to the representation of women in the boycott, which will be discussed later. When researching the men on the bus station plaque, we found that some individuals are also remembered in the Seven Saints of St Paul's murals, Roy Hackett and Audley Evans being the two in particular. The murals are scattered throughout the area of St Paul's and are dedicated to influential members of Bristol's black community. The mural is described to specifically align itself with the history of protests. St Paul's is also important in terms of its carnival, which was formed not long after the boycott in 1968. and serves as a celebration of Afro-Caribbean culture. Using DataShine, a platform that maps census data, we found St Paul's to have the highest percentage of people from an Afro-Caribbean origin in Bristol, with Black British being the most dominant ethnic group in this area. Street artwork and memorials in the area are influenced by this cultural background, hence why the area features memories of the bus boycott. Bristol has chosen artwork and cultural events like the St Paul's Carnival as platforms for highlighting Bristol's controversial past in a modern and refreshing light. Another way in which the boycott has been memorialised is through the creation of a commemorative bus in 2023 to mark the 60th anniversary of the event.
Our research into the bus led us to Alyssa Thaler, the Italian-born Bristolian artist who designed the artwork for the bus. She entered a competition run by First Bus, the company who currently dominates Bristol's bus transport, to create a design to commemorate the boycott. Her design was chosen as the winner, and so was then wrapped onto the bus. The artwork shows images of influential individuals involved in the boycott, including Roy Hackett, Audley Evans, and Guy Bailey. The previously mentioned Ragbir Singh, the first non-white bus conductor, as well as Norman Samuels, Bristol's first non-white bus driver, are also featured. Alongside the key figures, there is information about the wider influence of the boycott, such as the 1965 Race Relations Act. We found that this commemoration would aim to have a positive impact as a day-to-day reminder of past racism and the battle for workers' rights in Bristol. However, our line of inquiry led us to learn that the bus's design would only be used for 1 year, leading us to question its importance and reputability of remembering the boycott. When the bus was first unveiled, it drove a route to visit and highlight communities in Bristol with significant black heritage, like St Paul's. Important individuals from the boycott were on board. In October 2023, as it was taken to the Palace of Westminster in London to commemorate the boycott. The bus carried important individuals from the boycott to attend a parliamentary reception hosted by the MP for Bristol West, Thangam Debonair. Civil rights activists and boycotters were all on board the bus. When we looked at a photo of the event, as shown on the next slide, we noticed the photo had many women in it. However, when we researched and photographed the commemoration for the bus, we found there was very little reported on the impact of women on the Bristol bus boycott. This lack of representation is not uncommon when researching Bristol's history and its current efforts to try and represent previously marginalised communities.
Line of inquiry, we started by researching Barbara Dettering, the only woman shown on the commemorative bus. So Dettering is one of the people represented in the 7 Saints of St Paul's murals. Of the 7, 3 are women. Carmen Beckford, another female represented in the murals, took place in the boycott as seen in the photo. Beckford then went on to help organise 1968, which is still held biannually. We were encouraged to investigate other women involved in the event and found Joyce Morris Wisdom was a significant figure. She was 14 at the time of the boycott and took time off school to be involved and encouraged other school friends to join her in doing so. We found that this was clear evidence that women played a role in the boycott, despite not having as significant actions in the same way as the men of the boycott. We believe that further research and memorialising of women in Bristol's history would be essential to show an accurate representation of women in Bristol and tackling Bristol's complex past as it continues its path of decolonising.
Alyssa Thaler won a competition to design the Bristol Bus Boycott commemorative bus. The design was added through a wrap, which is much easier to remove than paint, more temporary. Moreover, that the bus is only remaining with the design for 1 year raises questions about the choice of a temporary display. The design acknowledges the 1965 Race Relations Act, celebrating its 60th anniversary in 2 years, so why not keep the design for at least an extra 2 years, if not permanently? Bristol has been keen to address its colonial past by renaming buildings such as Colston Tower or Colston Girls' School, so we inquired into why the bus's design was only staying for a year, but it yielded no clear answers. To continue our inquiry, we explored the bus's route. We tracked it over 3 weeks and discovered that it doesn't specifically pass through black communities or heritage areas, just as a normal route, with normal route changes without significance throughout the day. Despite its commemorative purpose, the bus functions as a regular one, doing a regular route with a regular driver. Our interaction with the driver revealed minimal awareness or care for the bus's design. Furthermore, the interior of the bus has no recognition of the event. This led us to close our rabbit hole, having highlighted the lack of effectiveness of the commemorative bus as a lasting memorial for the Bristol bus boycott. Our research of industrial work in Bristol took us down the rabbit hole of Bristol's economy growing and needing to be able to provide the services of a growing city. We discovered the movement of people from the Caribbean to Bristol and the result of new cultures affecting Omnibus's company's services. They believed enforcing a colour bar would help retain and satisfy customers. This led us to a line of inquiry about the success of the Bristol bus boycott. We gained a focus memorialised in Bristol, such as through plaques, museum exhibitions, and finally, the commemorative bus. However, the legacy of all these events and memorialisations may be questioned by the temporary nature of the commemorative bus. As we followed this line of inquiry, it ultimately led us to the bottom of our rabbit hole, forming our research question. How successful was the commemorative bus at memorialising the 1963 Bristol? Its legacy be on Bristol and its continued decolonising attempts?
And these are our references.